And we're back. This is episode, God, 62. I don't. Hey, Elmo, can you talk? Let me just make sure the audio's coming in right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So we have the audio coming in right. We are live and streaming both to YouTube and Twitter. I canceled my Apple Podcast thing. I mean, like, I don't have enough episodes on there to really make a series out of it, and I'm not really interested, to be honest with you. If they can't offer a live streaming service, I would love for this show to be on some sort of back channel on an international talk radio like Spaced Out Radio, how they broadcast out of um, what's it called, Vancouver. Um, but we will start going, and I took a 2 week hiatus, had some family issues. Um, But we will start getting going. We were talking quite a bit before the show. Let me get on to the where's the
Roll back here.
yeah, where's the topics for the show? I really haven't been, down and dirty. I'm completely off social media. I still get my information, um, but I am not going to go through the echo chambers to get it. I did hear some things I already knew for quite some time, and everybody is calling it a bombshell. Um, the Tic Tac UAP from the Nimitz Institute, the one that's in the background of this, um, is now it's coming out of the pit fire that it was Lockheed Martin technology, and it was a blind shock and awe operation to see how our military would react to foreign technology. Um, and I've known about this for like 3 years, dude. How is it like Ross Coulthart said, it was, he had the verified sources, Lockheed Martin technology. I've known about this for 3 years. In fact, I think I've said it on the show.
Yeah, we talked about them Tic Tacs a lot. Just and it looks like something that you could, that something that craft that size, you could probably pull off. With advanced tech that we're building. That
If you look into what they were building in the early 80s, um, it's okay. They were building something similar in the early 80s. Okay, I know that, and it's not well known. They were building a propulsion rocket interceptor that could go. It was be pre-drone technology that can go in any direction, going at Mach speeds by using pulsed jets. You know what I mean? Like they do in space. Um, and they had a gyrometer, but the tech that Lockheed Martin is using is not on world. That predates what they had already found. If you go back into the FOIA requests from the 1950s, if you look into the old, they used to have something called UFOAs and UFOBs back in the day, and UFOBs were the actual UFOs, okay, because there was unidentified flying objects. But if you look into the old UFOBs and you do a search into flying propane tanks, okay, it's the exact same thing. I believe Lockheed Martin didn't start making this stuff until the late 90s. So and it's always been rumored, that you know, they have ARBs or what's it called, uh, basically replica vehicles of off-world tech. And they've been slowly trying to introduce this technology into everyday applications so that we'll just gradually just accept that it was natural. I think the first iteration we're going to have are what are known as gravity dampeners, which is already a real thing where they use some sort of wave to, yeah, yeah, ARV, yeah, some sort of wave uh, to um, to dampen the gravity, to reduce, a couple pounds here, couple pounds there. You can certainly do this with physics, but not on the magnitude scale. And slowly over a period of 50 years, bring it up to us that we have anti-gravity. You know, that's their plan. Um, you can't just run up and say that, hey, we don't really need um, propulsion anymore. We have gravity drives that are working complete opposite of what you think that they are.
That would blow the fossil fuel market, and
Yeah,
just
but that's
yeah,
that's that's kind of why they want to slowly introduce it into regular tech. And this is not unheard of. Colonel Koso, talked about the same thing, even though there were, most people nowadays don't know who Colonel Koso is or um, his involvement. If it's anything before the internet, most people don't know. You know what I mean? Like nowadays kids just don't know. They
yeah. I
don't.
mean, even like the Vietnam War, for sure, World War II. I mean, they have no knowledge of that. They don't have honestly they don't have much knowledge of anything, but it's just slipping all the way around.
Yeah, there's there's just a lot of connect the dots that people, I wouldn't say it's entirely their fault. There is what we would call an active disinformation campaign that is, how did they do that? I'm seeing stuff that's not here, but is here. I don't know. I have some technical issues. There's stuff there's stuff that if you connect the dots and you know where to look, it's not really as secret as you think. So that's why you really need to stay off of this social media, rumors and whatever. People really need to start looking outside of the box because the information is there. Okay, I'm not going to tell you where to look. I don't want anybody knocking on my door. But the United States government and these private defense contractors can't hold anything that secret. Okay, it's not hard to find. I don't know who the individuals are. I just know who the players are. You know, I couldn't name you one officer that's actively in it. But what they're doing and where they are is not really. It's not hard to find if you know where to look. Um,
Yeah, for me, it's like there's the same people that there's a dislike of any kind of disclosure of certain topics, and now that's includes you have multiple, the UFOs, JFK. Like, why are we sitting here 60 years later still don't know about JFK? Why is disclosure? That's a totally different topic. No UFOs involved, right? Why is that a problem?
exactly.
It's the same disclosure problem. I mean, there's that's the problem.
There's just I don't really know where to start. I mean, it's I get it. There's money, there's people's lives that'll be lost, blah blah blah. There's people's, livelihood, just destroy whole industries and whatever. I get it. You need to slowly introduce it, right? That is the plan, but not in the next 10 years. You know, not in the next 20 years.
Well, yeah, it would be the uncontrolled. See, as long as they're behind the change and pushing it and all, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if it's uncontrolled stuff that they don't, that they're not behind, well, then that'd be a problem because it's a control problem. They're
Yeah.
all for change as long as they're behind it and getting government money and subsidies and all that. We can change all day long, but you know, it's just very suspicious. It's just it's like, come on.
You really don't have, most people don't look into who defense contractors are. They're all publicly listed, okay? you really, that's the only advice I can give you. You know, there's a couple hunt, there's almost more than a couple thousand of them. Just look into every one, start following the trail. You know, oh God,
Yeah, because yeah, I keep thinking about this. It's like as far as disclosure, it's just like
it's already
I,
happened on
I'm more,
paper. You know,
yeah,
it's
I'm more and more convinced that the aliens have disclosed themselves. I mean, they're being seen all over the place. The only people that have a problem with disclosure are the friggin' government. Like even admitting that what you're seeing is like, yeah, you really saw that. No, we can't even do that. It's like it's so ridiculous.
I mean, I just
I mean, if they
posted.
want to blow their credibility anymore, I don't know how it can get much lower, but I mean, if they want to lower it, continue to lower it, that's a good way.
Yeah, I was on what was it on Nellis? I was posting on a thing. Look into people don't even look into Range 4 at Nellis Air Force Base. Who's living there, huh? How long have they been there? It's been on there. There are videos. If you look onto the back in the 90s, remember I showed you the radar video?
Oh yeah, some of the best disclosures. I mean,
Oh, okay,
it
here.
seems like there was more disclosure going
Hold
on,
on.
like 30, 40 years ago than there is now.
Nellis
It's
Air
just
Force Base, UFO, 1994. Where is it? And then there's a whole book. There is a whole book written by a guy who was stationed there back in the 60s. But people won't read books, pre-internet era. Um, but here we go. Nellis Air Force Base. If you look onto
true.
there, oh, no, that's not it. It's this one. Sorry. This one. This one, where they showed the craft. And that's the one on the from hard
Yeah,
copy back in the 90s. In Range 4, an individual, a combat vet, was contacted very frequently out there by what we would call today as the Great Whites. I don't think they had a name for that back then. And apparently they've been living out there on Range 4, before the government was even there, which does line up with the um, some of the Navajo and Hopi tales of the Moonite people who existed before the white people came, uh, often described in the mystical lore. Um, but it's not unheard of, you know what I mean? Like these people can't connect the dots because they don't read, you know, you
yeah,
know.
and and it's well, and the reason something's slipping among humans is because that's supposed to be one of the things that like separates this great pattern recognition that humans have and their ability to see something and yeah, 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 yeah. And, I mean, that's just slipping, dude. It's just like you say, if you can't connect some simple dots and concepts and uh,
And for most people don't know what Nellis Air Force Base, it's about 80 miles south of Area 51. So
yeah, just
people, yeah.
it's frustrating. I mean, you can see you see why. I mean, you have to like almost devote a lifetime to like get one topic in the public's consciousness. It's almost that bad.
Should I even tell people how Jake Barber is doing the dog whistle that he said is a trade secret? Hold on, I'm gonna post this here. Uh, Man prays for UFOs. Man prays for UFO. Yeah, there was a guy back in the 1990s that prayed for UFOs to come, and no, that's not that guy. Oh, Prophet Yahweh. There he is. There it is. This guy. So, and he people thought he was crazy, and it was posted on Las Vegas. Um, it was posted in Las Vegas about this homeless guy that would pray and lights would appear, right? So in the 90s, the news, in Las Vegas, Fox 8 or whatever, uh, interviewed this guy, and he did it on command. And guess what showed up? A freaking yellow orb on camera.
Yeah.
And okay, if anybody wants to know how Jake Barber is doing this Skywatcher thing where he's summoning UFOs, right? Using he calls patented technology. It's not well known, but Michael Herrera was a Marine who was part of that whistleblower program, was talking about in some interviews when most people didn't give two rats about who he was talking about he was introduced into this world where it was black operations where they were using things to summon people. Okay, so using people to summon UFOs. All right, and we really got into a lot of what they were doing. Suppose a lot of times they're taking children from um, they're taking children often of descendants from native tribes, completely devoid of technology. Often these children or people are indoctrinated into shamanic practices, so very in tune with the paranormal and the bizarre. Will often feed them drugs that are known to enhance consciousness, often stimulants, amphetamines, certain nootropic combos. We're not. I have a general feel of what they're doing, and do something similar to what is known as a CE5, but on its steroids in a very technical aspect in a very with using mind altering chemicals. Um, I'm very positive at this point. I know what they're doing and how they're doing it, but to explain it to the average Joe, they would say that, so what, you got to make a pentagram out of ketchup and you pray and it happens, right? And what I'm saying is, um,
Well, I mean, I mean, I've heard of other folks, with their fires, and fires in their circles, summoning things, as long as everybody's focusing and on target, and there's nobody, trying to
yeah,
screw the
but
thing
this is
up.
a
You can actually conjure things, from the flames.
very new aspect where they're enhancing the natural abilities by using chemicals
Yeah.
and other techniques I know to induce deep induce altered states with enhanced telekinesis. And it's not it's not much different than what they're doing at a CE5, but they're doing it more on like a laser focused level. It's not really like some sort of patent technology. I know how they're getting. I know almost if they're using anything other than that. And um, the only thing I could think of is that they would be somehow broadcasting some of the why would you even need to do that if you're dealing with consciousness? If consciousness is a waveform on the quantum level, um, repeating it somewhere on the EM spectrum, which I don't know why you would want to do that, but it's not really hard. And if you look into what Skywatchers are doing, and they're getting real results, conjuring UFOs on video. Um, with these people that were working for, in the black world of the defense contractors. It's not really, I mean, like, if you know anything about what the Russians were doing, to try and get UFOs to come, they were putting, these Bugs Bunny traps with nuclear weapons, hoping the UFO would get there so they could shoot it down.
Ah, oh, there you go.
You didn't know
Well,
about that?
back in the day. No, I've heard of stories, going back into like the 50s, where, jets were sent out to actually, intercept and take them down. Um, but yeah, from the Russian side, trying to blow them up with a nuke. I mean, hey, I mean, that
Oh no, they were using the nuke as
one I've
bait.
never
They were
heard
using
that
the
one.
nuke as bait, and they were using guns
Ah,
to shoot him down.
okay.
And after their third or fourth attempt at doing this and losing so many pilots, they gave up and they said just don't shoot them. But they were,
Yeah, if you're in the business, if you're a government in the business of looking at what other, let's say Russia, starts these programs and, you hear, through the leaks that they're getting some progress. I mean, you have to chase, it's impossible as it is, for a guy like me, say, to kind of believe that angle of the whole thing. It's still worth looking into because you don't know. I mean, that's an unknown that you have to check out as implausible as it sounds.
I heard from a naval defense contractor many years ago that that the United States Navy was doing the same thing. According to, remember I told you back in the 90s getting UFOs or submersible very old UFOs off the bottom of the ocean, what they would call technology. What's it called? Foreign technology
Yeah.
division using underwater rovers that would go down the bottom of the ocean to find these things. Often they were not related to any crafts. These things have been there for quite some time. But the Navy was also working on technology to the same thing to take down UFOs, not by shooting it, but by implanting a very powerful EMP into a surface-to-air missile kind of tech. But it's to produce something that's going to be. Here's where you get into some weird stuff if you know anything about EMPs, and if you're not working with nuclear material, you're going to have something very big. Um, Especially for the charge and discharge. So they probably were working with something fairly mid-range nuclear to produce a negligible EMP to take down a UFO. So, yeah, Americans have been doing the same for a while.
Yeah, that now that technique, let's say an EMP takes it down. Well, that's a kind of a clue to their tech. I mean, it's EM based, right? Or else that wouldn't work. I
Well, yeah, even if they are, even if there is some nuts and bolts thing, and there is a consciousness aspect to all of it, and how they're designing things. We're still, not there tech wise.
No, I mean, you don't see us doing anything type one
No.
yet. You know, I mean, we might be getting theoretically close to type one because we burn so much fuel or whatever. But I mean, that's not you're not directing it and using it in any big way.
Yeah.
So long way to go.
So this is why I get really weird about people who are just bum higgity out of any new little pipe of information that comes out of UFO Twitter. And I'm just like, not only you're dealing with an echo chamber where it's all recycled garbage, and you're dealing with people that are uh, making a living off of this, which I don't understand how you could even do that. Like, I got a day job. Actually, I got more than one day job, and yeah, like this is a hobby of mine, like on the side. But like you're dealing with legal disinformation, or we call counterintelligence officers that are assigned to all SAPs. Um, you're also dealing with paid skeptic groups, bots that are programmed to bury information. Um, you're most people are searching, using Google, not understanding that your searches are being filtered. which I do have a way around now. I do have a way around it for the non-technically inclined, but you do need to know programming. Um, People don't know how to find information or where to look. And unfortunately, if you are on social media, you're just on a small echo chamber of recycled information. It is very rare for, an oh shit moment, coming out on the clear net or any sort of public facet. Like when we were doing the shadow brokers with the our old show, the guys who were selling NSA tools on the dark web.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nobody ever caught them.
Well, it seems like they work for the guys who would be chasing the guys that are supposed to be looking for them. Yeah, it's like they're not. I think they work for them.
It could be. I mean, you never know. I mean, God for somebody actually paid Bitcoin for whatever the hell they were selling. You know, who really cares if it's NSA tools? You can get Gira, that reverse, and the NSA has software out there that's freely available anyway, which I would never install on my shit, but
Well, yeah, and there's a risk there because of how long stuff is going to work. Until somebody figures it out. It's not very long these days.
no, it's not.
You better
Uh,
have a plan quick and use it.
yeah. What else was on our agenda? We had UFO Twitter. Oh, the shrinking internet. So there are some ways that you guys out there can find information by doing searches on major search engines, but you're gonna have to be more specific about what you're looking for to get around those content filters. A way around it, which would probably be my best suggestion for people who are not technically inclined, is to ask an AI, LLM, or large language model bot to search it for you, because often those searches are a little more specific using either what it's found or what it can find. But unfortunately, if you want to do it yourself, you're going to have to do a lot of Boolean um, stuff like in URL to .xyz.shop and do those kind of top level or those TLDs, Dutch, you know what I mean? You're really going to have to get a little more specific. You can't just say, I want to see pictures of UFOs, blah, 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 this and that. You're really just going to have to search more of the content and where you need to find in more of the longs of a Boolean search. Um, so the internet's not shrinking. It's just the content filters are making it harder to find shit out there.
Yeah, I was thinking, as far as like having, some kind of UFO red. Why not just go to like? I mean, there's only so many like UFO agencies out there. MUFON, being a good example that why not let them be your filter? They're the one that takes in all these reports, and I mean, if anything big's going to come out, they're going to have it. You risk. It's okay to if you're looking for new pictures, some of that sort, globally, but you know to have any a report of anybody who's actually looked into it, rather than just spending hours going through all these videos and 90% of it's CGI, just wait for somebody to do that.
And how many whistleblowers
Use
have
it,
we have we had in the last 5 years that have just spilled all the beans on Reddit and 4chan only to be deleted later? And like we've seen that how many times in the past 5 years? A lot,
yeah.
a lot of classified info just dumped onto these darker parts of the internet. You know, like 4chan of all places.
It's a, I mean, a strange way to get disclosure, but I mean,
I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to dig a little deeper into places, forums, um, and a lot of stuff. You might have to do old, I hate to say it, but you're really gonna have to, do your old detective hats if you really want to find what you're looking for. Because the average, armchair, internet detective is not gonna find any of this stuff because they don't know that their toolbox is ineffective in finding a lot of this stuff because of these content filters. So, um,
well, see, it's a report. It needs to be investigated. Somebody needs to go out there. Like, I mean, is this real? You got any witnesses? You know, you find out the guy's video. I mean, when you do it that way, it's a job, right? I mean, that's actually looking into something. And it's not like, collecting and reposting shit on X, man, or any of it. It's like that's not investigative. I hate to break it to you. That's not work.
well, speaking of which, I heard Mika Hanks talking about the WikiLeaks or Wikipedia and how it's in decline, how it's become more of a political skepticism and uh, thing that, well, all I can tell people is stay off of Wikipedia. Okay, there's it's not that the people who are putting the pages up are the problem. It's the Wikipedia editors, the constant barrage of bots that they have on there that are I don't understand what the hell they're even doing on there. I'll get into that about something that really made my blood boil. Okay, that I'm pretty good expert on, and it was completely wrong. And if you try to post anything on the paranormal or whatever, it is ran by a bunch of the Gorilla Skeptics, and there is a major editor out there named Shet and his group of editors that are what do you call it, kingpinning um, a lot of what is on there on the paranormal or esoteric stuff. And to be honest with you, there are religious groups. There are people that want to erase information onto a publicly added website. To be honest with you, Wikipedia runs on a $200 million budget. That's a nonprofit that literally can fit in 100 gigabytes. All right, it doesn't make any sense how they need $200 million for a uh, for a website that literally could fit in your pocket. It doesn't need that much resources. Okay, somebody skimming off the top. It's probably at some level a corruption level, but we'll never know because they're. But the I don't think they publicly post what the hell they're spending the $200 million on. But there are groups on there. The Guerrilla Skeptics are being funded by intelligence groups to take stuff off of there. Okay, and not only that, you have political biases, bots that are putting wrong information. Um, like, okay, like I don't know if you know anything about benzopyrazine. Okay, the designer drug. There's an offshoot of it called 4,4-paramethylbenzopyridine, which is basically instead of having a six chain benzene ring, you flip it and put a it's basically a benzene ring with an extra nitrogen hydrogen atom on. It's another stimulant, right? But somebody, a bot on there, put that this drug is a derivative of halcyon, which doesn't even have the same atomic structure at all, which is actually a derivative of meperidine, which is a synthetic opiate. Okay, so you have bots that are putting weird information on there that doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, people who are experts are not going to put their 2 cents in there into scientific information. Um, So basically, what they were saying is that in scientific terms, if you don't understand chemistry, is that an apple is an orange, and an apple is a derivative of an orange because it looks similar because it's round. That's basically what they're saying. But so when people use Wikipedia as a reference model for anything, like you gotta seriously like question like what the fuck is wrong with you, you know? At this point, I can't trust any of the information on there.
Yeah, it's been let's see what's that. Well, it's that's you're talking about the problem with the curated internet here. It doesn't matter if it's Wikipedia or your search engine over Google. They're tailoring the information that they want that they will allow you to see. That's the way to put it.
And experts are not putting their 2 cents in because they don't want to. They don't want to deal with their Wikipedia page to be chopped up into bits and pieces by an bot putting, weird
Yeah.
information that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so you can't you can't be a controversial figure without getting chopped up and having your stuff trashed, for whatever reason. Yeah, it's just not, at
Ha,
that point, okay, it's marginally useful. That's
Alamo, have you ever looked? Okay, this is one thing that I don't. You know about stereoisomers, right? And the positioning of atoms, right? And it's important,
okay.
right? It's important to
Yeah,
the position of the atom, right? If
sure.
you look at half of the pictures of the atomic structures of any chemical that's on there, and you notice the position is always not in the position it's supposed to be in. Who's checking that? Who's checking this? I've seen compounds out there where the atomics, when they put the atomic structure on there, it's not even facing the right way. But God forbid you put a medicine like Ozempic or something. The half of the article has nothing to do with the pharmacokinetics or the pharmacology or the atomic structure. It's all political. It has nothing to do with the medication.
Hmm. Well, I mean, and then again, I mean, well, is Wikipedia supposed to go to that level? I mean, what is there? Are they just like an executive one page of the information, or are they supposed to go in depth? I mean, I suppose they could, if you just had endless articles and people contributing to it, and it just continued, you could have some kind of exchange like that and articles like that. But that's not really what they do.
No, they
It's
just post
curated.
bullshit. It's curated and it's bullshit and it's highly
Yeah.
inaccurate. Like a lot of the atomic structures are not facing the right direction at all. The isomer, the bonds are sometimes put in the wrong place, and I've tried to edit it, and then you know, I, I I'm like I don't, and then I get corrected on my Wikipedia. Eventually, I don't even bother anymore. I'm just saying if I'm pretty knowledgeable about that, what else on there is highly inaccurate?
Oh wow. Well, there's a meme out there like if the news you are seeing is total bullshit, and then they have a picture of like a museum and like the statues and the Greeks and Romans, then how much of that is bullshit? You know,
Yeah.
essentially all of it.
Like
I
nobody will
mean,
get nobody will get into the whole dinosaur discussion about um about how the positioning of the bones. We have yet to find a full skeletal structure of a lot of these animals, and we've guessed some of their anatomy. Nobody gets
true.
nobody
Yeah.
gets into that. I'm not saying that
No,
there's no
this is,
such thing
man.
as
I tell
dinosaurs.
you,
I'm just saying that there's a lot of it that where they've
here,
artificially placed things in the bone structure to make it fit. But we have yet, for a lot of the
uh,
species out there, we don't have a full skeleton.
yeah. Well,
Nobody gets into that.
I mean, just look at the people. My analogy of how many people walk into math and science buildings versus the rest of the college. It's just like you get into anything technical, and there's just not many people. That's because I see articles about like people on like say the brains that are needed, X number of thousands of people worldwide, like say to run the internet. The people you had to have. Well, that number hasn't really changed in a long time. It's like, you're not keeping up. You can't keep up with the you don't have enough people to keep up with the level of technology that's going on. You're at a critical rate. Like if something did happen and you lost this brain trust, you'd be fucked
I'm
because
scared.
everybody
I'm
else is
scared
just
of. What I'm scared of
yeah,
is people are talking to Chat GPT and don't understand how LLMs work and don't understand how they train them and don't understand what exactly they're talking to and believe that anything that they
you know,
say is complete truth without knowing about what are known as hallucinations or God, I could just go on for hours about how, and there's even a Star Trek episode about that, oddly, about how people became too dependent on their artificial intelligence that they forgot how to do anything.
we forgot critical thinking. Well, yeah, critical thinking got dropped. Man, that was pretty. I'd say that was like a '70s or '80s. That was getting dropped. Because it was like after that, it just the rest of the politics you see and the path we've been on is kind of crazy. For sure, after 9/11, I mean, people can't. Well, you talked about connecting the dots, critical thinking. If you can't think and put together, or you can't think critically and beyond a simpleton level, you're missing. You're just not sophisticated enough to understand what's going on. That's what's really and hence therefore if you can't figure out if you're not sophisticated enough, then your opinion really is just a bunch of shit. You know, hate to say that, but I mean that's why people are so full of shit because they are. They can't put things together. You have people where it rains 12 inches who are still camping in a river valley and they're surprised that the water's coming up. You know,
Well,
critical thinking, man. I mean, you should be aware and self-aware enough of where you're at to know. You shouldn't need a warning. You should already be
anybody who's lived
aware.
near, yeah, anybody who's lived near a river knows that we have what's known as flash flooding. I mean, it's like
Yeah, but
you
dude, I
think
mean, just
I haven't,
it's just it's a sad. What do you call it? It's like a data point. It's a sad data point for society here. Uh, but that's where you're at. It's just like, well, who? Hey, Tyler, who had time to watch the weather? Right? I know it's important. We're camping out here in a river valley, but
I
who's
check
who's
the
got
weather
time for
every
that?
day.
Yeah, I mean, who's got time for that shit? We're watching sports, wrestling. We got other things going on. The campfire, grilling. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, it's raining hard, but what does that really mean? See, even at that point, what did it mean? Not enough to give you, for you to give a shit. Apparently.
Well, apparently FEMA's
But
not
yeah, you
doing
can't
anything
connect the
about
dots, man.
FEMA's not
You-
doing anything about it. And that what's that lady they call what's her name? Barbie. Barbie's yelling at FEMA.
oh, Christino,
Yeah,
South Dakota Barbie.
I hate her.
Yeah,
She's
she's
been
another sad case of cosmetic surgery gone wrong, man. Because I mean, you look at
her
pictures of her,
Stephen
you go,
Miller her Stephen Miller and the head of the Border Patrol. I guarantee you, not now, not during this presidency, but after these people are going to go, there's going to be an interrogation and they're probably going to go to jail, if not pay a huge fine. But if you're in politics, you never go to jail, right?
no, I mean, you always have a guy like
Remember
Trump to
Markowitz?
cover up
Remember
for
when
Hillary
Markowitz was
and
covering
Clinton.
for the child trafficking? Markowitz, the other
Well,
guy?
yeah, yeah. Well, they just covered up for Epstein. There's no client list, Tyler. You believe
Yeah,
that shit?
the old head of
I mean,
DHS, Markowitz, knew about it. Knew about the child trafficking. He didn't, and there was an investigation into him. He didn't go to prison either. They just yelled at him in front of Congress, and that's it. So,
yeah, it's a strange government. I mean, it definitely doesn't operate like it's supposed to, or else there'd be there wouldn't be this level beyond which nobody's accountable.
well,
That
bro, they,
shit
they
wouldn't
just
happen.
ran through MacArthur Park with machine guns, with kids here in LA, with kids that were doing summer camp. Who are they protecting? Like,
This is the yeah government scaring you. I mean, it's important that you be scared because that keeps you on your toes. You don't know what's going on. It's like cops just throwing their lights on the side of the road. It scares you, right? I mean, you don't know what's going on. I mean, this guy coming after you or not? He's just fucking with you. I mean, it's a cop
Uh,
shop, you know.
oh
And if you
God.
understand how a cop shop works, that's what you're seeing. Security theater. That's another way to put it. I'm putting it nicely now.
God, what was I gonna say? I was gonna close out the show with something strange. 2026 Chris Bledsoe's prediction. I've already talked about it in this show, but what that may be. I don't believe that Chris Bledsoe is talking to angels. I don't believe that. Um,
Well, now well, here's the thing. What are these remote viewers? What are they tapping into?
oh,
They have techniques, they're trying things, they're tapping into something, but what is it? And,
well, we do know it's
is it what they
that's
think
not
it
what.
is?
Yeah, that's not really. If you look into the, have you ever heard about when they were doing the MRIs on people that were doing remote viewing from the old Stargate project? You never heard about that?
Mm, I don't think so.
So what people thought that was happening would be increased brain activity, right? That's actually not what was happening. But what was happening was there was increased blood flow to the peripheral parts of the body, e.g., what you would expect if you were how should I say this in some way that makes any sense? So if you understand what people who have the disorder where they hear colors and taste sounds, so they get these neurotransmitters mixed up, um, there's some sort of physical swapping that goes on. And if you are trying to sense something in the quantum realm and you believe that the body is just an encapsulation of this quantum field, right? And it has to have an exit point. Some parts of the body, antennas or feelers that would reach in and reach out. They are essentially, in my experience of it, because I do this all the time, um, because you can see things in ways that you couldn't see with your eyes, if that makes any sense. You can see things in 365 degrees. You can pull information out of nowhere. You can see things and feel things that aren't there. Um, you can see things that aren't really focused in one point in time, and you can see things that could happen or will never happen. Um, but I do believe that we are tapping into something that is the fundamental core of what I would call reality or the simulation, where and this is where again there's some really weird topics about where the designer of the Intel chip was talking about how, and Tom Campbell, one of the leading top physicists, was talking about how um, reality is probably a simulation based on probabilities, and the simulation is might be self-aware and gradually refining itself to experience more. So not only are the NPCs or the players are essentially an objective and a subjective force within the simulation. So they're not only are creating, but they're also a part of it. But the players are immortal, um, and I don't even say this makes any sense about what is going on in remote viewing. It's kind of like what you said about turning into the energy stream. Like a filter. How there is analog data. Remember that?
No.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay, you said something about that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
if reality is based on Planck's distance and the 8D theory is right, then reality is digital. Um, because
Oh yeah, yeah. The
what they've found is that you can, even if you're dealing with something and you can fold something into itself, the maximum you can do by any dimensions is about 8. So they think that what reality is actually constructed at the Planck level is what's known as digital three dimensional, what you would call a quasi-crystal. Um, these are um, these are exotic pieces of, we don't know what exactly would be constructed of, but it would be some sort of exotic material that has a lot of non, should I say, stuff that kind of goes on beyond the spine, time space, 3 dimensions, and they believe that this construct is also what consciousness is. It is an integral part of the reality that is there. And if you understand that consciousness is like this integral part of reality, then everything at some level is consciousness, is aware. That's all that all consciousness means is awareness with a choice. Um, but essentially what you're tapping into when you're remote viewing is that fundamental stream of whatever you can think of can happen. You're really tapping into that limitless information and knowledge that's out there, and you can also project yourself out into wherever. I believe it's subatomic. Okay, it's not a waveform. Um, uh,
yeah, because well, if it was just remote viewing, like say on the planet, you wouldn't need light speed
mhm.
to do that. But if you're getting remote viewing from say planets and it's real time, then you're 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 bypassing that limit, and
And
then
if you
you're
were
now
if you were subatomic, you wouldn't it wouldn't
stuff
even matter though, because would be quantum entanglement. You wouldn't, in quantum teleportation, you wouldn't exact
that
you
wouldn't be
could
a problem.
yeah, it wouldn't be a problem. That's why I think it's on the subatomic level. And I
Yeah,
believe that what we refer to as like a soul or whatever is actually something real, and it's technical. It is a energy source, and consciousness is a waveform on the subatomic levels. I actually read a book about a guy who meditated, and something on the other side did tell him what exactly we were made of, but it was on this quantum level, what they would call a particle bundle. I don't remember what they were calling it, but whatever was explained to him through this entity really wasn't too far off from what we are finding in consciousness studies. There is something going on the subatomic level. Reality can be influenced by thought. Thoughts are physical. Thoughts are real. Um, but when you scale up everything to the nuts and bolts and the physical reality, you're kind of missing the point. Everything is kind of more on this subtle, more subtle, mundane. Everything is out there, but you really need to tune in to get to it, if you know what I mean.
he can't do it by drinking a six pack and watching a baseball game.
I mean, if it's some really good
You're,
psychedelics, throw LSD dripped in there, but I mean, a lot of times, to get into these, there's like many different kinds of remote viewing. There's like technical remote viewing. There is what I do, which is much. It's basically what they were doing in Stargate in the original 10 people, which they don't teach. But there's even things about yourself that will even ruin the results. Like the filter of you, the ego, can completely destroy your results on what you're seeing. You can actually destroy your own um, interpretation of what you're saying. You can subjectively make up something out of your own imagination and project it into what you are trying to see. And it just becomes a complete, poppycock imagination, bullshit. That's why a lot of people who do remote viewing like to have something they can verify the results on.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, is there well, no, there'd be the other thing, to as a cross check or a proof of remote viewing, is there any are there any cross checks that they're doing, people remote viewing themselves, or let's see, I'll be trying to get at, some way to prove that this is working,
We
or that you
do.
can actually point it to you, or
Yes, yes.
telepathically between, that would be like telepathy between two people, let's say, that if you could do something like that, well, then you're proving a connection and some kind of short range communication.
We haven't had anything like that with the telekinesis from brain to brain, but what we have had is quite well documented out of body conversations dictated blindly by an interviewer after. And those are not well known about, but Tom Campbell and Bob Monroe from the Monroe Institute have a cornucopia of data on this where we're proving that out of body communication and travel is quite possible. So, I mean, telekinesis is the belief that it's mind to mind content, mind to mind um, uh, communication, which is probably not how it's working. If you know what I mean. It's not
Yeah,
originating.
just yeah, it's like, let's see how to put it. Like in a scientific experiment, you would do things, say repeatability.
Yeah,
I see remote people doing. They have techniques and they have things that they do to create this, condition where they can do this. Now,
yeah.
how do you verify that? How do you like say, like I was, like some kind of way you can cross check that you're actually creating a connection, focusing it where you think you're focusing it, things along those lines. I mean, it's like any machine, you just don't fire it up and it's not ready to go. You have to
We have.
tune and so forth to get it to work right.
Well, if you read it, Ingo Swann, who worked at SRI, his protocols are pretty damning proof, where the participants were able to remote view um, within 80% accuracy of what they were doing, and then all the subjects were blind. The letters were uh, numbered randomly. Everything was blind to each other except even the person who did the results. Everybody was blind to whoever or whatever was going, whatever the target was. I believe the people who did the results had no contact with the remote viewer at all. And as far as telekinesis, you have the quite well documentation or telepathy. Sorry, telepathy. Yeah. From God, even what they're doing with the um, who's that lady that's doing the stuff with the autism kids? The telepathy tapes. That doctor. We also have stuff from Princeton
Mm.
University with the consciousness studies. That one NASA scientist, Edgar, not Ed, not Ed, is it not Edgar Mitchell? Yeah, Ed Mitchell was
Mhm.
a big advocate of this stuff, and he has years of data. It's just that nobody really wants to look into this because the evidence is damning. That non-physical communication beyond distances is possible. That the human um, uh, that we are able to see and hear see things that we are not physically local to, isolated from the thing, and that we are able to and that physical distance and where we are not are just not the limitations of who and what we are. And it's just damning evidence that we are capable of more than what the scientific literature says that we're capable of. But it's hard to get that across to the what you would call the naysayers, because science is not a science actually a dogma. It's a religion. It's trying to make things fit in a box with with something that can repeat. But science at its core, and the problem with science at all is that it has its limitations, and they're never going to accept stuff like this.
Yeah, no, well, and because hard classical science requires repeatability, and you can't get that in paranormal experiences. It's just not. That's just not the way it works. I mean, you look at the range of experiences and techniques and things that are happening. Some with UFOs, some without. I mean, it's just it doesn't lend itself to that. You might create certain states, that from that, but it's not.
We do
It
know.
doesn't lend itself to science. I mean, other unless you can start to find something scientific that's going on, or some physics that's going on. Well, then you can start to classify it. But until
Well,
you do
we
that,
do know what
it's just
does affect it. We do know there are certain things that can affect these kind of practices. And this was from Major Ed Dames and the stuff that happened at I believe it was at PSI. So believe it or not, um, I believe there is a correlation between when the moon, gravitational force can affect what they were saying. When the moon was usually closer to Earth, there were the results were worse. And if there are high levels of ions in the atmosphere, the results were really bad. So we do know there are certain things that can affect this. It does have its limitations, but we are dealing with stuff at the quantum level, of course gravity would still affect things at the quantum level, and so would ions. You know,
mhm.
so it's something
Yeah.
really physical. It's but to get any real institution to delve into any of this stuff is like good luck.
Yeah, there's no commercial application, no money, no obvious big money to be made from this. So yeah, there's going to be R&D, but until you prove some kind of connection that's useful, it's just,
Well, we've
it's
already
always going to be a
proven,
fringe
that
topic.
most nonverbal autistic children have um, are able to read thoughts. Um, Very well documented from the doctor was that was doing the telepathy tapes. It was very most parents were not aware that their children were able to even pick up on this until they were able to, because a lot of nonverbal autistic children also have muscular muscular problems. So, but when you were able to train them to type on a keyboard and relaying what they were thinking or thoughts, they had 80-90% accuracy, sometimes 99% accuracy. So if if you're trying to go at that aspect. I don't know, maybe for nonverbal autistic children to communicate with their kids. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, it's
is
more animal. A lot of animals, they're reading your body language. They can't understand what you're saying or talking, but they're reading your body language more, more than anything.
well,
I don't know. I mean, all this is worth, the fact that, say, certain topics don't grab me or seem, plausible. I mean, it's all worth researching, because there might be something to be gained from it all. It's just so much of it though. It's just hard to believe. I mean, the range of experiences, or well, like you kind of were
Yeah.
focusing on remote viewing and certain things, and then the rest of it, you
Well, look at it this way. Scientific academia is willing to dump $13 billion in Switzerland to smash an atom to find out the fundamental building blocks of reality, right? $13 billion to build the LHC um, at CERN, but knowing that you can't scale up what they're doing, um, because really, so what? We find out that you can break things into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. Eventually, you're going to find a limit, and you're never going to be able to scale up what you find if you do find it, right? Because we're dealing with things that are so small that we don't even have instruments to do anything with it. We can detect it, we can know what it's going, right? But if you tell somebody that you're going to fund $13 billion into find out what consciousness is and to find out the fundamental parts of reality of who and what we are and what this place is, and people go no. So that's where we're at, you know.
well, yeah, I mean, now to be fair, one has like a real science behind it that's going to lead to conclusions. I mean, there's a reason to do that, to collide them and search, the standard model that way. That's why you would try to do that, to be at the tip of R&D. And there's no physical there's no obvious physical advantage to doing that kind of research. There's no like commercial obvious commercial money making way to use that, and because that's the way our economy works. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get big money behind it.
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
there's going to have to be something, say, I was going to say physical, but something useful is going to have to come from that.
I don't believe that we.
It's not be, well, we got a couple, certain people that can use it, and they're, 90%, 95% right at what they do. But then, it's like, okay, well, they can do it, but how about everybody else? I mean,
I mean,
and it's just so fringe, man. Nobody's going to, it's hard.
you can't produce anything in a particle accelerator like that that's ever going to be a meaningful amount of anything. You can't do the anti-hydrogen. You can, I mean, so what? I mean,
Yeah.
the most you could do is basically if you could isolate, a few, not even micrograms, but a couple atoms of, was it, not
Yeah. They've got
anti-hydrogen,
yeah, they've got
antimatter,
anti-hydrogen. Yeah.
anti-hydrogen, right?
That's,
But you need to
well,
contain
yeah.
it. We have yet to find a way to actually contain it stably for anything. And, you only
Right.
need more than a couple atoms to produce the kind of effect that we need to use for anything.
Well, they're still able to do tests with it. That's to discover, okay, what are the characteristics of anti-hydrogen? That's legitimate.
True.
Or you find the Higgs. Okay, yeah. I mean, there's your supposed God particle and mass creation particles. I
You
mean,
know,
well, there's the reason they're doing that is to prove standard model physics.
well, if the Higgs boson particle
And
is any
we,
feature to what people think that the multiverse isn't real, they believe that the parts that make the Higgs boson particle don't exist within just one dimension of this part of reality, and that it might be
uh,
in other part. You know what I mean? Like reality might multiverse might be the real um, Rubik's cube of reality, and that it's not just three-dimensional model or four-dimensional model. So,
Yeah, I think you're beyond that. Yeah, with spinning, universes spinning and black holes. I mean, that's kind of, finally gotten people, open their mind to what they might really be looking at here. The multiverse, right? I mean, that's you are
powered
in
by
a
consciousness. Yeah, powered by consciousness and
well, may or may not be. I mean, and there's going to be interactions between all these, universes bumping into each other, or maybe they were all created. They're all intermingling. They're all created at the same time. Who the fuck knows? I mean, it's just. But I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, if you can, if you just think of what a creation can be. I mean, it's not just like for us, our universe. I mean, because all the variables like in our universe can be tuned different ways, right? You could have an explosion with all kinds of different results.
yeah, the people think
Oh,
the
whoops.
atomic the things that make up the atoms are fixed, and I go, no, they're not. These are building blocks that could have been arranged in any other order. It's very possible if the laws of our universe were changed, and it's very people don't understand that concept.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't. Like all the ways you can characterize, the particles, and so you have all these, tunable constants, and that describe the universe. But yeah, they're all. That's the thing. They don't like. Hey, if they're all in these little zones and they only work in this like at these certain settings, that's kind of suspicious. That like how you even exist. But yeah, you can't explain it. Well, once again, because not too many people go into the math and science and physics building, you have this problem. You know,
All right,
there's no way
fantastic.
they can understand. How are
That's
you going
right.
to explain things like that to people that have no background and ability to even think like that? They can't do it.
As Plato
Their
once,
concepts of,
once said, that and he didn't say it directly, but you really have to think outside of the box to figure out your surroundings. Like you've really got to get into that real philosophical um, logic that is out there to really understand what is your reality and what is out there. And the best modern person I have ever heard, blip blop about what our reality is and what it is coming around from these yahoos that I know. Tom Campbell, the Italian guy who invented the Intel chip. These guys are out there, and those guys can talk much better and beautifully than I can because I am not a physics PhD. I just did a lot of college and have quite an extensive knowledge in many other things and some things that I shouldn't. But the bridge between paranormal, simulation theory, science, it is there. It's just,
well, look what, let's say chemistry. I mean, look what medicines, how they can alter your body and your consciousness. Just look at what they do to you.
well, you have you heard what they
No,
found out?
it's,
With the new stuff they've had out for, or the cube, the instead of the benzene ring, then they're able to do a carbon cube ring. You don't even know about
Uh,
that?
well, like the C60, the
They're
fullerenes,
No, this is fairly new, but they haven't found a real. They're able to make a cube out of carbon bonding
yeah, yeah.
at the atomic level and under certain conditions. And people were like, people in the hive were like, okay, let's make cube and fed methamphetamine. Like I was like, oh, you guys are just going one direction
Yeah.
because these are the guys in the chemistry. They're out there doing wizard tricks. But I'm just saying that we what we think is the ideal things that we think now are going to be in the next 20 years are going to be blown out of the water. So yeah, that's what I mean. When Plato was basically getting into these weird philosophical things about reality and what are our surroundings. You really got it. You know, even Rene Descartes, who came up with I think therefore I am. The only true constant between any reality is that I exist. You know That's the only true constant between anything, between any reality, sleep, dream, hallucination, or whatever. Um, you really need to have these real philosophical questions to understand reality, or you're never going to put all the pieces together.
Yeah, yeah. You have to think. Okay, even if it was in Plato's way of, thinking about the environment and what he was seeing and coming to conclusions they did, well, that's where it starts. You have to start looking around. You have to start being aware. This is, goes going back to being aware and self-aware. Especially of your surroundings. Hello,
Yeah, and
what you have to do. It's
yeah, if people don't know a lot about these, these Greek philosophers, they were really strange. They were oddly physically fit and were into like sports, you know, wrestling specifically. Very well physically fit guys who um,
you know,
often dabbled into psychedelics of their surrounding areas. Like um, I even suspected Rene Descartes in France was doing the same thing. Um, you have to be
well, yeah. You're trying to you have to be able to describe your space, the Cartesian plane. That's Cartesian space. You have to start somewhere describing, the basics,
Oh man.
and something that's real. I mean, it's like, okay, spatial, that makes sense because that relates to something real. You're putting it on paper now, but that's just, you know, a real physical reality, transposed into your sheet of paper.
Like I used to tell people this, and this is one that'll trip people out, right? That people who are very skeptic will say that reality is nuts and bolts and it's not subjective or objective, right? Okay, if you don't believe, okay, here's the devil's advocate, right? So if you are not the if reality is how it is, if you are the player and the creator, right, on some level, and let's just say that you put out there that you don't believe in the paranormal, you don't believe in anything that's not real, that is out on the fringe. You know what? You will never see the fringe because that will never reveal itself to you. But oddly, and you see this a lot with people who get into the occultism, right? And they think that if you are open to the possibility that there are things out there and it starts coming to you, right? Is it because you open that door, or are you essentially not only are you experiencing, but you're also co-creator of that reality? You get what I'm saying? It's more like
Well, you participate in it. I mean, you are
yeah,
part of the environment. I mean, uh,
you're
you're not creating it. I mean, you're participating in a reality. That's for sure.
and not we are
You're
not
having
all experiencing the same reality either. That trips
right.
people
Yeah,
out
that's
too.
well, and yeah. I mean, look at what your life. Being older, you can look back. It's like the where you're born, the abilities you have. Who your parents were. Education. I mean, so there's all these things that create who you are. So yeah, everybody's having a different experience. I mean, luck's involved. I mean, all these things. So you don't know. You can all be doing the same thing. We all have to eat, take crap, all that. But all the other things that you do add up to the experience you have. And it's pretty much everybody's got a different one.
I always find it funny,
Yeah.
when I meet a hardcore skeptic and they don't believe in anything, and I ask them to pray to God. They go, okay, and I go, well, okay, well, why don't you open up, the Necronomicon and start reading it back to front and pray to the devil? They won't do it. Why? You know?
Mm, well, that whole concept. Well, now there's a that would seem people would take that as like the devil is the opposite of God, but they're really just two different things. They're not.
They're not, yeah, they're not.
That's a whole that whole concept. That is just a concept.
Exactly. It's the possibility that you're going to open that door and what you think is your reality is going to shatter because on some mundane level, no matter how much you try and lie and convince yourself, there is some part of you that knows that what you think reality is bullshit.
Mm.
I don't I don't know. There are people
Yeah,
that
I'm not. I'm at the point where it's like you got to really question. Beyond a certain point, you have to question things because it's unclear. Like say what's on the outside of the universe. I mean, you don't know.
well there was
So you have to be realistic. I mean, it's just what you can know. I mean, we know enough. I mean, you're in an advanced society that's you know may or may not get beyond type one. Who knows? But okay, you know enough about the universe and what's going on to be where you're at. I mean, we're pretty good at handling this level of it. Where it goes from here, and more than that, what people are able to do with it. What people of marginal intelligence and low critical thinking skills can achieve. Now, that's not really much. Okay, I mean, you're not going to get to type one that way. There's not
no.
enough. So this may be it. I don't know. I'm
Look,
not seeing what I think I need to see to get to the next level. That's where I'm at.
same
I
here.
just don't. Yeah, it's just you need a quantum rethinking or a quantum consciousness, reboot, and it's just not going to happen, man. I see things going down rather than up.
Start feeding people Adderall and put in the water supply.
It's just something's gonna have to change.
Man. Yeah, there was something that was really scary to me when you talking along those lines, and I've heard this spoken quite a few times. To understand what is out of the physical construct of reality, and they're assuming there are physical limitations of the computational filter of our reality, such as our nervous system and our brain, which do filter out. The brain's primary function is a filtering mechanism so that it doesn't overload the senses to the conscious logic part of the brain, while the other part is just interpreting all the data. But if there are limitations, um, and you are a part of the simulation, how can something that has limitations and a filter understand something that is outside of its creation? You get what I'm saying? That like it's these weird fundamental questions. Even if consciousness is everything, what is outside of consciousness? What is outside of existence?
Yeah.
And if you're a part,
Um,
if you're, it's like trying to think of what is beyond infinity. Infinity is a concept. It's, you know,
well, the universe, the whole spinning universe. See, you're in this space, in this universe. Another universe is not going to be set up like this.
no.
It's not going to look the same. So you can't look at it like your universe is a container for everything because it's not. It's just it's what you've been given, in this space. That's it. I mean,
Yeah, it's your instruction set. This is all you get.
yeah, you're locked in, and you have the limits that this space gives you. Now you might be able to, RV into other existing. I'm not sure. Once again, I'm not sure exactly where remote viewing. What is it you're tapping into? That's what I worry about.
What is a
What is it?
locality? Yeah.
What are you tapping into,
Because
and what are these entities?
that's where it gets really weird is because when people ask me, how are you seeing this? Right? how are you interpreting what you're seeing? And often I'm not seeing things from one place. I am seeing it from every, if I want to focus in, like usually it's not one direction either. It can be all directions too. And it's hard to really describe what you're seeing because you're not essentially seeing with your eyes either. You're seeing something in much more color spectrum and it's not seeing with your eyes. I can tell you that. It's as though I had a let's say I had a matrix, right? Like an optic sensor, and I was interpreting the um, all of the photonic energy that is coming into the sensor, but interpreting all that data in every aspect. So it's hard for me to tell people what the hell I'm seeing. I literally have to dumb it down into like, okay, it's a door. Okay. But that's not what I'm seeing, with my, in the session. Okay. Not necessarily, not always that
You're
subtle.
like you're freaking out as you're floating through the door, right? I mean,
I mean, sometimes it's like that, and there are other times you're just like, it's more of that photonic, sensor thing and seeing everything from every direction, 360 vision, Um,
yeah, I look at it. Well, in the few times of your life that you like come up with these eureka moments, it's like you get to another level where you can like pull away and start to see things how they are instead of you're in a moment probably too involved with whatever it is and you can't see the big picture. So you have to pull away, and then all of a sudden you see it in this new light. But
yeah,
really, all it's just recognizing another pattern at a different level. I mean, it's just kind of the same thing. It's a different understanding, but what did you really find out? You just have a different understanding. It still may not be a complete understanding, but it's more of an understanding that you had before.
well,
You think like when
TRV,
you're 5 years old, you think like a 5 year old. When you're 30, you think you should think like you're 30.
well, there are people that do like what's called technical remote viewing, and I do more and more of the out of body stuff, and but the technical remote viewing does is more of a um, there are steps and there's a sensory and meditation aspect to it where these people are doing similar things but not in the same fashion that I'm doing it. Where they are seeing literal things, but once you get into like these other realms where you're out of body, is things that get more complicated. It's like trying to explain something you saw in like 5 dimensional reality into your human brain that can barely comprehend 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
There was this one guy that smoked some derivative of Salvinorin A that barely hit the dark net, and it was in some college lab, and he had smoked like 10 milligrams of this unknown substance that was a psychedelic that is known to hit the kappa mu receptor, which is not the 5H2A or 5H2B psychedelic receptor. And the 5H in the kappa mu receptor is responsible for a lot of the salvia hallucinations and the PCP ketamine stuff. Um, and the only thing he could say is because this thing had a long half-life versus, 10 minutes, a 10-minute trip, is that he was a five-dimensional being and he was trying to interpret all the data into 3 dimensions, which would never make sense to a human. He said he existed for a million years. He, just all the concepts of time just didn't exist.
Uh,
Um,
well, I
he,
think with all this, when it, go back to some physics here, like you have this, crisis in cosmology because your distance measuring techniques don't match up, at different distances. And a way to explain that is like, well, for whatever reason, like in these early periods where there's this inflation and extra stretching going on, It wasn't just space that got stretched; it was time. That's why you have these time problems. Um, so, see, where was I going with that? That's your clue that to what time is, not just space. That space can be stretched. Time can be stretched, manipulated, and your existence isn't what you think it is. It's not like just you like in a spatial environment. You're like in a relativistic test tube that can change depending on what's going on or how fast you're moving or there's no. I mean, there are stabler points in all that, but then there's other areas where it's not stable and you're in some kind of fringe, you know,
Yeah,
just in just physics alone. I mean, you see this with your paranormal or this chemistry. I don't know where I was going with all that, but it's just I guess the variability of any topic is seems to be so huge. You can try to like have disciplines where you focus on things, try to have experts in certain areas and all that, but you can't. You get to points where it's just like there's so much information about everything
exactly.
that it's just hard to. Yeah, you just can't process it, and that's even in our universe. So if you're tapping into a fourth or some kind of fifth dimensional level, I mean, it's all but unknowable. You might just understand one little piece of it.
God.
I just like that. I mean, being a nuts and bolts guy, I need to have some idea of what a remote viewer is tapping into. There has to be like some
Sorry, no, I
physics.
think my work's getting
I mean,
hacked
I know it's
again.
just yeah, that's like crazy, but
One of my alarms at work went off. Oh, it was my coworker. Never mind. He just messaged me. Sorry.
you have a gremlin in the machine.
Oh God, dude, those guys have tried. Oh my God. What was it? They tried to clone a Microsoft login from a .ru. I was like, yeah, right, buddy. But some of our employees, fell for it. Thought the CFO was um, mailing people from a Russian website for their logins. Yeah. Anyway, I gotta cut it short
Critical.
here. I gotta call my kid. He's overseas on a trip right now. So we'll resume the show back on to the 24th